I've been thinking about how the first major battle of the Civil War really set the tone for the entire conflict.
Are you referring to the First Battle of Bull Run?
Exactly.
Right.
It's fascinating how everyone expected a quick resolution, but, things didn't quite pan out that way.
Yeah, people thought it would be over in weeks. What happened?
Well, both the Union and Confederacy were scrambling to build their armies with enthusiastic but inexperienced volunteers. President Lincoln was under pressure to act swiftly, so he ordered General McDowell to march towards Richmond.
Which was the Confederate capital at the time, right?
That's right. The idea was to capture it and end the war quickly, but McDowell himself felt his troops weren't ready.
Oh.
But he moved forward anyway due to the political pressure.
So, kind of a recipe for disaster then?
You could say that. He had about 35,000 troops marching into Virginia, facing Confederate forces under Beauregard and Johnston.
And the Confederates had similar numbers, didn't they?
Yeah, just under 33,000. On paper, it seemed balanced, but the Confederates had better familiarity with the terrain. Plus, they were more motivated defending their own territory.
That makes sense. So what went down on the battlefield?
On July 21st, near Bull Run Creek, the Union initially had success pushing back the Confederates. But then Confederate reinforcements arrived, most notably under Thomas Stonewall Jackson.
That's when he got his famous nickname, isn't it?
Exactly. He stood firm like a stone wall, inspiring his troops to hold their ground.
That must have been a turning point.
It was. The battle descended into chaos. Smoke, confusion, plans falling apart. Both sides struggled with internal disorder.
Yeah.
The inexperienced soldiers didn't handle it well.
I can imagine. It's one thing to train, but real battle is a whole different story.
Absolutely. The Confederates, with Jackson's leadership, managed to regroup and launch a counterattack.
So the tide turned against the Union?
Exactly. The Union troops were thrown into disarray. The retreat turned into a rout back to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
It was a humbling experience.
Do you think their lack of experience was the main issue?
That, and perhaps underestimating the Confederates. Plus, unreliable intelligence led to confusion.
That's interesting, but wasn't McDowell also partly to blame for strategic errors?
That's a fair point. He didn't adjust his plans effectively as the situation changed.
Exactly.
Leadership plays a big role in such situations.
So what were the casualties like?
There were about 4,700 soldiers killed, wounded, or missing. It was a staggering number for a single day's battle back then.
That must have shocked the public.
It did. The illusion of a quick, bloodless war was shattered. Newspaper reports brought the grim reality home. It was a sobering moment for the nation.
How did the Union respond to this defeat?
They realized they needed to reorganize and reevaluate their strategies. General McDowell was replaced by George B. McClellan.
McClellan was known for being a good organizer, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He rebuilt the Union Army, but some argue he was too cautious in the field.
So maybe an overcorrection from rashness to hesitation?
Perhaps. It's like they swung from one extreme to another.
Mm-hmm.
Finding the right balance was challenging.
What about the Confederates? How did the victory affect them?
It boosted their confidence significantly. They saw it as validation of their cause and capabilities.
But do you think it might have given them a false sense of security?
Possibly. Victories can sometimes lead to overconfidence, but they also understood the war was far from over.
Right.
Both sides had their wake-up calls.
So, in the grand scheme, the First Battle of Bull Run was a reality check for everyone involved.
Exactly. It highlighted the need for better training, leadership, and strategies on both sides.
It's interesting how a single battle can have such profound effects on a war's trajectory.
Indeed, it set the stage for the long, grueling conflict that the Civil War became.
So many lives affected from that point forward. It's sobering.
It is. And it reminds us of the sacrifices made and the importance of learning from history.
Definitely. Thanks for shedding light on this. I hadn't realized how pivotal Bull Run was.
My pleasure. History has a lot to teach us if we're willing to listen.
Speaking of learning, do you think modern militaries take these historical lessons to heart?
I believe so. Many contemporary strategies are influenced by past successes and failures.
Yeah.
Warfare has evolved, but the core lessons remain valuable.
That's reassuring. Well, this has been an enlightening discussion.
Absolutely. Always great to dive into history.
Agreed. Let's plan to explore another event next time. Maybe something from the Revolutionary War?
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.